Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing it to the news on Church Stories. I am Oyi Okbala. Let's begin. In the early hush of December's dawn, a tremor swept through Womb, a town now holding his breath. Madam Ngom Zenobia, keeper of culture and steady voice in council halls, was taken by figures draped in the guise of power. Their demand, 10 million francs CFA, their identity, a riddle cloaked in fear. And so the community stands in quiet anguish, hearts heavy, hopes unbroken, sealing for her safe return, mourning the rising tide of insecurity that shadows the land like an unending twilight. For in the silence that follows such a loss, for the mountains seem to listen, the streets move with caution, and every whispered prayer becomes a plea for justice, for peace, and for the dawn to finally break through the dark. This is where we'll begin Undaunted tonight, but first, let's get the prime headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, Bamenda Colonial DO accused of arbitrary school closure as it sparks outrage. Also tonight, the Colonial Council's 1.2 billion francs CFA budget ambition seems to be another empty promise. Bamenda French Cameroon military thugs patrol teams of Ambazonia and armored vehicle. Also tonight, Divisional Delegate of Art and Culture abducted by dressed men in French Cameroon military fatigue. Outrage over Anicet Akan's death as Léon Theiler Onana demands resignation of French Cameroon's minister Atanga. On the African scene, Africa hosts historic G20 summit, puts developing nation priorities at center stage. Putin unmoved as Trump envoys marathon meeting produces no breakthrough. Now let's get the news in full briefings. The Colonial Divisional Officer for Bamenda, Ayuni Austin Saka, has come under fire for allegedly closing a school without justification, leaving students and parents in the state of uncertainty. The school was sealed by the Colonial DO without explanation, and when the administration reached out to him, he reportedly told them to negotiate with a particular woman in the quarter due to a personal issue. Despite repeated attempts by the school administration and parents to resolve the matter, the Colonial DO has refused to open the school, promising to do so only if the woman in question intervenes. The students have been forced to gather at the school premises only to be sent away without any lessons. The situation has sparked widespread outrage, with many questioning the Colonial DO's motives and authority. This act of bullying by an administrative officer is unacceptable, especially in a crisis-driven areas where education is already suffering, said a parent. The school administration has reached out to educational authorities, but none seem to be aware of the Colonial DO's action. The prolonged closure has resulted in significant disruptions to the academic calendar, with students having already missed nearly 2 months of the first term. Many are describing the Colonial DO's actions as a clear case of abuse of power. The Colonial DO's insistence that the school's administration's negotiation with a particular woman over a personal issue has raised eyebrows, with many questioning whether this is a case of favoritism or extortion. The fact that the Colonial DO has asked for a document which was presented only to now avoid his office further fuels speculation about his motives. As the situation continues to unfold, parents, students, and educators are calling for the Colonial DO's action to be investigated and for the school to be reopened without further delay. Now let's get our in-house analyst, Barrister Mbeseha. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm happy to have me here.
You're welcome. And of course, you know that the Ambazonian government has always said no schooling for now due to the insecurities. Last week, we saw so many insecurities arising in the perimeters within the school, one of which was the one we saw military having shootouts in the school, and we wondered what happened to the students. And this here is one of them. Of course, the year is coming to an end, which would mark the end of a term. And it seems like next term is another time when people would have to put themselves together to go to school. What would you say to parents who are planning to ensure that their children goes to school with all of this disruptions happening?
Well, every parent has the responsibility to plan for his or her child going to school. That's all what the parent is required to do. But the closure which is under discussion is not because of Ambazonia. Neither are we told that is because the school has violated some rules about opening schools. But a certain guy calls himself Dio, jumps in and closes the school. The bottom line question is, has this Dio the right or the power to close the school? The answer is no. All opening of schools, the creation and opening of schools, do not pass through the Dio. The Dio has absolutely nothing to do with it. And so they go from the ministry, depending on what school it is a secondary school, it's the Ministry of Secondary Education. It is a primary school, it is the Ministry of Primary Education. And in each town or each city like Bamenda, they have a delegate for either secondary schools or primary schools. They have a delegate that represents that ministry that enforces rules about schools. None of those rules is pertaining to the DO. And of course, the DO does not even hide. He has not said in his closure statement that the school has violated any rule. He has not said that he has had any authority from Yaoundé, that is the ministry of that school, whether higher education or primary education, to close the school. If there was one who passed through the delegate, he has simply said that the proprietor, whatever it is, should go and negotiate with a private woman in the court here. Therefore, he is acting like a court. The issue that has led to the closure of the school has nothing to do with education. It has something to do with somebody's private interests. And so, can the DO, or does he have the right to enforce specific interests of private individuals? The answer is no. If that woman, we don't know what she is, if she has a problem with the school, it is his or her responsibility to take the thing to court, have the issues adjudicated, and the judgment comes, binding the both parties. If the judgment comes from the Bamenda court, whichever court it is, and it is not satisfactory, the party is allowed to go on appeal. That is the procedure. Going to see a DO, giving him bribe, or because you are just his friend, or whatever reason, for personal reasons, he orders the closure of a school, is manifestly illegal. Do the parents have an influence in this? Can the parents plan against it? They don't know. This is coming at the end of the beginning of the school year. Go away. This is coming in the middle, at the beginning of the school year. This is first term. And so, bottom line, short and simple, that DO doesn't have that authority. His actions are illegal, manifestly illegal. If I were the proprietor of the school, I would sue him for exceeding his powers. Because, as I've just said, the order has not come, he has not, at least the best that we know, the order did not come from the Ministry of National Secondary Education, if that's a secondary school, or primary education, if that's primary school. It's just an invention by a certain duo who sits in Yaoundé, who sits in Bamenda, as I've always said, and claims to have its own territory, chef d'etat, because he has a presidential decree. He can issue his own decrees in his own way. He can issue his own orders in the pretext that he is enforcing some laws that do not exist. So I would better advise, the children have lost so much. This is the end of the term. The school has to open. We don't know whether it will open or not. But the proprietor should go to court, obtain an order to open the school, to declare that dues order or decree illegal. That's the best option for it. Get up. Over to you.
Yes, sorry for the disturbance. All right. So, in another story, in the Savannah zone of Donga Manchun, La Republic de Cameroon's Colonial Council Undo has unveiled a 1.2 billion francs CFA budget for 2026, promising major work on roads, water, and youth programs. However, residents and analysts are asking their hard questions on whether this money will ever reach the ground or if it is just another cycle of flashy announcements masking weak accountability and possible mismanagement by the French Cameroon's government. The 2026 budget adopted by the Colonial Council has lays out an ambitious development agenda which major collaborators and allocations for road construction, water supply, and youth empowerment. Abdul Kafon Borno, acting colonial mayor for the French Cameroon government, presented the plan as a blueprint for transformation, but observers are already raising red flags. The road projects totaling tens of millions of francs for small segments appears impressive on paper, yet villagers remember previous budgets that promised road openings, grading, and bridges, most of which were never started at all, remain unfinished or poorly executed. Some of the allocations, such as 4.9 million francs EFA for street rehabilitation, seem far too low to deliver meaningful results. This has left the public to wondering whether the numbers are realistic or designed to make the budget look ambitious, as in the norm for the Biya regime. Water projects, including a 100 million franc supply scheme covering 5 communities, faced similar skepticism past experiences in the area, suggesting that large water budgets often fail to produce functional infrastructure. While boreholes remain dry, pumps break down, residents question whether this funding is truly aimed at public service or simply creating room for funds to vanish into opaque channels. Also, youth empowerment initiatives including classrooms construction, micro projects for fish production, and support to small enterprise are under scrutiny as well. Critics want that empowerment is frequently a convenient label for spending that cannot be tracked or audited, allowing money to circulate without accountability while leaving intended beneficiaries waiting for results. Funny enough, the Colonial Council insists transparency will guide the process, promising open procurement, quarterly report on community radio, and oversight by civil society and local communities. For many, this may sound familiar, recycled statements that have historically failed to prevent delays, mismanagement, and the disappearance of funds before tangible progress is seen. Oh well. 2025, the people were promised a lot because of the projects, because of the elections, Barrister Mbeseha. 2025 is past and the people didn't see any of the promises, from the roads to the healthcare that were abandoned and even started. Now a budget has been passed for 2026 and the people of Undu seems not to appreciate this particular one, knowing that it's either going to be the same pouring water on a rock or pouring water into a basket, or just an empty promise. They seem not to even have any form of hope that there can be a turnaround when it comes to budget implementation, even after it's been adopted. Would you blame them at this point, or would you think that they should keep hope alive?
Now we should blame them. Why we should? I don't know why it is even keeping hope alive. It is what we can say in those local parlance, deja vu. That has been there. That do counsel wherever it is. It did not start existing in 2025. It has been there forever, for decades. Why are all those projects being mounted there now? But above all, those do have the money to do anything. They don't have any money. If they are making any budget, it is based on the premise that Yaoundé would give them the money for all those things. The national budget, drawn by the National Assembly in Cameroon, which is based in Yaoundé, has never been able to fulfill its own needs. The budget things, they never do. So any affiliate group, call it a council or a region, sitting there and hoping that they will give the money for those things, you're deceiving yourself. All those items they put there are meant to cajole the people. I come from the building, for example. I've seen the council make all those things. And the council never has anything. I've seen the Yaoundé government send few dollars to go and build a fish pond. Just like they're saying there in Lu. The money never came. Whatever everything was even provided was stolen on the way. Because the Yaoundé people send the money at this time, they send it to the regional council, we send it to you at their will and tell you what you will do if they have money. It's just a budget. A budget is a projected income. As long as the council is not raising money by itself, it is depending on projections of money coming to the national treasury. Because the money, if they do come, even from that even if there were a taxes paid on cows living in that place, the money will go to Yaoundé first, and then Yaoundé will distribute and in total give all the decentralized authorities 15%. What is 15% of the national budget? There are more than 360 councils in Cameroon. 15% of the national budget, which is about 800 billion, is zero. If it were divided equally, the share that you would have, only of those councils having that same status, will not even be up to it will not be even up to the billion. It will not be 500,000 in the first place. So they are just deceiving themselves. It is a campaign promise designed to fail. Because before 2025, they had 2024. Can that mayor say that they have fulfilled, they have executed the whole budget of 2024? Whatever was the amount, whether it was 100 million, whether it was 50,000, have they executed it? If they have not successfully executed the 2024 budget, what makes anybody in this world believe that they will execute the 2025-2026 financial year? Have they fallen on some lottery? Have they dug a gold mine? Nothing. New is still new. Nothing has changed. Kambe is still Kambe. Womb is still womb. Bamenda is still Bamenda. If that council could have that much money in the bush, you can do by every Sunday is in the bush. Why will Bamenda town, which is supposed to be the regional headquarters, have the total failure of what we've seen over the years, in spite of the direct promises from the French embassy in Yaoundé, from the ministers making different trips to Bamenda, promising gold and silver, water everywhere, electric poles everywhere, and nothing ever delivered. So it's a tale. They are thieves. They are just lying you. They are doing what they know to do best, to lie, to deceive the people. And so that should not mean anything to anybody. They have sometimes even dug boreholes. What's a borehole? You dig a hole and water comes out of it. But for that water to come out, you need something to pump it out of it. A small generator. They have failed in doing those sort of things. How much more of that massive project? 1.2 billion. It's laughable. If you ever see half of that, that will be the heaven. What to you?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Barrister. No hope at all. Meanwhile, in another report, After the Berlin video surfaced earlier this week, another recording has now emerged showing elements of the French Cameroonian forces moving through Bamenda town into the Midland zone in an armored vehicle with rifles. Residents have described their presence as intimidating and heightening anxiety in a community already strained by the ongoing war. A new video is circulating widely on social media this day showing an armored vehicle and several heavily armed colonial soldiers patrolling through the streets of Bamenda. In the footage, the vehicle moves slowly while soldiers flank it, scanning the surroundings, while residents diligently hide indoors and watch cautiously from a distance. Visibly uneasy, a bold civilian was able to capture the footage through a window from their home. According to people living in the neighborhood, the deployment allegedly did not appear to be linked to any immediate threat, but looked more like a deliberate show of force. Some locals describe it as a routine display of intimidation that has become common in the city and across all other towns of Ambazonia as a whole. According to them, they say we see BS military men before we see an explanation, while adding that those patrol vehicles create more fear than reassurance. Since the outbreak of the Amazonian War, Bamenda has been caught between the activities of illegal armed groups and the growing colonial militarization of civilian areas. Residents confirm that armored patrols in residential zones have become frequent, often without any prior communication from French Cameroon occupational authorities. For many families, the sound of armored vehicle and the sight of armed troops are enough to trigger fear. Critics argue that French Cameroon continues to rely on visible force rather than the tangible protection for civilians they claim to stand by. Meanwhile, community groups report that children especially are distressed by the presence of military-grade vehicles moving too close to their homes. Unfortunately, the images capture daily life in Bamenda, a city trying to function while soldiers, weapons, and armored vehicles serve as constant reminders that the war remains unresolved and that the population continues to bear the weight of it all. Barrister Mbeseha, they say there is no war, but yet military vehicles are all around, creating chaos, creating fear, and creating unsteadiness for the people of Bamenda. Join your voice to this.
Oh yes, what the military trucks are doing there, even what call it machine gun, is an indication of generalized fear. Not fear by the population themselves, no. Fear by the military. They are so scared, they are so frightened that they can run that thing through the streets with the hope that that would frighten Ambazonians, whoever they are, to come after of their hiding spots and run away. An armored car running through the streets will not frighten an Amba fighter. An ASA sitting at the corner, in a strategic corner, preparing to blow up an IED will not frighten them. And so this is just a sign of frustration from the military. They know nothing, and sometimes give them to credit. You give them some credit for what they say. When those things happen, if they are patrolling like that, when the thing came out and killed people, they will say, who blew up this thing? Unidentified armed men. That's how they put it, and that's the truth. They don't even know those people. They cannot identify them. They don't know where they are hiding. And so they think they can patrol the streets with those things. Okay. But this one has failed up to this point. They didn't start patrolling the streets today. 2 days ago, or early this week, we were talking of an IED that blew up their own very military vehicle made out of cardboard. Where were they? Why do you not dictate it? It was in the main street in Bamenda. They didn't dictate it. They didn't even know when it was planted there. They didn't talk less of knowing who planted it. So they don't know. They are frustrated. They think that they can go like that and deceive people. If they go like that, in that process of what they are doing, they saw you, or my grandfather, or my grandmother, there's something at home they used to take and call it snuff. You take some point and put in your nostrils. When they found somebody snuffing at the corner of the house, they would think that that guy is blown out a nuclear weapon. They will shoot and kill him because they don't even know what it is. And so everything frightens them. They shoot, first because they want to kill you, but most importantly because they think that they want to save their own lives, because their lives are not safe. the place is so insecure that that's the best way they think they can maintain law and order. But how long can that be done? And where else has it been done like that forever? The time is not long. They cannot do it for long. They don't even have the money to drive those things. You can remember that we have this incident still in Bamenda, where a fire outbreak would occur somewhere else. They pull what they call the firefighting machines and take there, which is what? It's just a truck with water inside there. They go there, they discover there's no water even in the tank. And they're trying to put out fire with the truck. They are so defeated, they have been incapacitated to a point that to say, yes, we're defeated is their problem. But signs of defeat are clear on their faces. Signs of frustration are virtually everywhere, not just in Bamenda, everywhere in Ambazonia. They have dug their own graves, and so shall they be buried in it. Until they pack and go, they will continue to be frightened. Until they pack and go, they will continue to be surprised by IEDs planted in the middle of the road, in the middle of the town, where the report will show unidentified people did this. We shall investigate. No investigation ever comes out with the result. And so what do you conclude? They've lost control of the city. What do we tell the world, especially in Bamenda? We tell the archbishops, the pastors, that nothing has returned to normal there. What do they tell us? They tell ambassadors, the pronuncio, the ambassador of France, who visit Bamenda to go and preach when people cowardly enter into a church or into a mosque, that everything has returned to normal. They are lying. Behind every calm spot in Bamenda, there's great fear of death. And so these guys, they can patrol that their thing forever and ever, will not do anything. If people are moving there, they're just passing them. Can a patrol actually dictate an amber fighter? A rare amber fighter is a gorilla. Can they dictate them? No. They stand there in the civilian clothes, carry their weapon and say that they're drinking their book. You don't even know it. So that is a failed tactic. We take them nowhere. And so that's why we fight. Ambazonians are encouraged to continue, especially in Bamenda. Bamenda is a no-go zone for them. When they go there, especially in those vehicles, make sure all their corpses go back home to tell their paymaster general that the war is not over, that the problem is not solved until you address the root causes, and then those trucks will pull out of the streets. Everybody will enjoy normalcy, including they who will go back home to their own country. Over to you.
Of course, the war is definitely not over, and that is a sign for them all to go back. Meanwhile, Barrister, in another shocking incident, Mada Ngongom, Zenobia, the Divisional Delegate of Arts and Culture for Menchum and second Deputy Mayor of the Womb Council, was kidnapped by gunmen dressed in French Cameroon military attire on Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. According to local sources, the abductors have demanded a ransom of 10 million francs CFA for her release. The circumstances surrounding the incident remains unclear and officials have not yet issued a statement. The kidnapping has sparked widespread concern among residents and colleagues who are calling for her safe and swift release. The identity of the abductors is yet to be confirmed, with speculation rife that it could be the work of either armed gangs or rogue French Cameroon security forces. The use of French Cameroon military uniforms by kidnappers has become increasingly common in Ambazonia, making it difficult to determine the true nature of the abduction. According to them, we are deeply concerned about the safety and well-being of our beloved delegates, said a colleague. Said we urge the powers that be to take immediate action to secure their release. As investigations continue, the community is holding its breath, hoping for a peaceful resolution to the situation. The incident highlights the growing insecurity in the region and the need for urgent action to protect citizens and public offices and officials. The demand for ransom has raised fears that this could be a case of kidnapping for financial gain rather than a political motivated abduction. Barrister Mbeseha, do you think that this could be a kidnap for financial gain, or all of these are politically motivated?
No, well, I don't have a short answer for that. But if it is happening, you see, somewhere in Cambe, And that woman is the deputy mayor, in addition to holding another office there. I would suspect that in Cambe, where she is the mayor, is one of the divisions or the areas where President Paul Biya won the election by 100% or close to that. She is directly or indirectly involved in the political manipulations that they did under the CPDM to claim victory where they never had one. I feel sorry for the poor woman. She's a mother, she's somebody's wife, she's somebody's mom. But they have volunteered themselves into this caliber of criminality by the offices they hold, by the actions they take. It is wrong to say that the woman was adopted by unidentified gunmen. No, the story is that the people were in the military regalia of the government. They wore government uniforms. Therefore, from everybody's eye, what you could see, they are government soldiers. If the government cares to say they are not their soldiers, they should prove it wrong by bringing the real people and saying this man is not our soldier. Because in Cameroon, getting the military fatigue is not an easy thing. It's not a thing that you go down to market and buy and wear. If they are not responsible, how did these guys acquire all these things? If they are not military guys, they are military guys supporting them by giving them the arms, the weapons, the uniforms that they use in doing what they are doing. And therefore, 99% of the blame goes to the government. And of course, as you just said right there, the government has not yet issued any official statement. Where are the so-called DOs? Where are the commanders of the Bs, of the Gendarmerie? Where are they? Nkambe is not a very big place. Where is Ngala Gerard, the great mayor great MP from Nkambe? They are leaving us to remain in speculation. No, it is the government that has done it. They are asking ransom. Ransom taking is not something for Ambazonia or Rogue people. A good number of times, it has been proven that government soldiers take ransom. They take you and take ransom from you. They take you under the cover of whatever thing. Pretend, use the government arms that they are giving to them. Take ransom from people. And they don't deny that. They did that throughout in Guzan. They did that in Momo when they used General Efa. Gave him weapons. They kidnapped people. They even kidnapped Madame Mundi out for a ransom of 10 million. Released her, escorted her to where they wanted her to go. And this is the story from Madame Mundi herself. She told us the guys used the weapons, according to them, given to them, the ADF, by the government. And so there's no speculation saying that we don't know. Who knows? That's where it points to. If the government says it is not them, it is your right. The government, they have all the tools to investigate and get the truth. But as long as no other truth is coming out to challenge that, those guys who wore those uniforms, that those uniforms were government uniforms, the presumption, and in fact, a very strong presumption, is that they are government-owned militias who steal the money, extort people for money. Is that new? No. They are on the system as from the top to the bottom. It has been established that they are thieves. They loot the treasuries. They steal from everywhere, officially, and they give no account. So what is the difference if they take down man and ask for a ransom and got even 20 million? They will hit their chest, go away, maybe come through the back door and give that very woman a gift to tell her she's working so hard for the CPDM to have gotten 100% there. So be it. And then we feel sorry for you. It is unfortunate that your family is going through this, but you volunteer yourself into this position, especially when this is coming after the elections. You volunteered 100% vote for Mr. Paul Biya, which you knew that it was never there. By doing that, that's political thievery for which you deserve to be punished, if that were the case. So either way, government is responsible. If they say no, they don't know how to correct culprits. Over to you.
All right. All right, Barrister. I love your viewpoints there. Government may be responsible. All right. Meanwhile, in another development involving the neighboring French Cameroon, the death of Ansette Aken president of the African Movement for New Independence and Democracy. In detention has sparked intense political reaction. Léon Theiler Onana, a prominent political figure, has called for a series of immediate measures to address the situation. Speaking in Yaoundé on December 2nd, 2025, Onana demanded the resignation of French Cameroonian Minister of Territorial Administration Paul Atanga and the dismissal of officials at the Secretariat of State for Defense, accusing them of serious misconduct. He also called for judicial proceedings to be initiated against them. Furthermore, Onana demanded the release of all individuals he described as political detainees, whom he considers victims of abductions. He also called for an international investigation to determine responsibility for Ekana's tragic death. Onana's demands comes amid growing outrage over Ekana's death, which has raised concerns about the treatment of detainees and the rule of law in French Cameroun. The international community has been urged to take a closer look at the situation and ensure that justice is served. The call for accountability and transparency is expected to add to the growing pressure on the BS government to address the concerns of the opposition and human rights group. As the situation unfolds, it remains to be seen how the regime will respond to these demands. Oh well. Call for resignation, Atanga and Barrister Mbeseha. Is there even any possibility that this request would even fly at all? Knowing that Paul Atanga has been very, very loyal to the French Cameroon's political regime.
No, I don't think even Taylor or Onana will get those things. Intend that somebody will fire Atanga. He's sending a message. He knows that nobody will do it, but he wants to be on the right side of history. Taylor Onana is not a new man on the political scene. He was, and I think he's still, a CPDM guy who rose up to the level of assistant mayor of Monatele, I think, of a CPDM mayor of Monatele, who decided to challenge the status quo by filing his own candidature for the presidency. But he didn't look for a different party. He was filing to become president under the CPDM. We all know what happened to him. His candidature was rejected. And what he thought he could do best, like most people do, he fled the country. He is exactly like Issa Chiroma, who lived with the CPDM for more than 20, 30 years. At the last minute, he bolted out and became independent of the CPDM. He put his presidential candidates and he won the elections. Unlike Onana, who escaped by himself, Chiroma was chased out with guns and cutlasses to catch him and kill him for daring to win the elections. He too is abroad. So Taylor is talking that thing from somewhere out of the country. Because if he were back anywhere in Cameroon, like Anisette, who he's trying to bargain for, he will be a dead man. They will kill you. Because his abilities, even his attempt to challenge the CPDM candidate, who happens to be the almighty Pope here, was a crime, punishable by death if they caught him. If they didn't catch him, they would strike you dead in the street for doing it. Because the status quo is not to be challenged. Talk less of winning them, like such a did. And so Taylor can put all that to tell the world that I'm no longer part of this club. Investigate Atanga or any other person. But it's not him calling for the investigation of Atanga alone. Every right-thinking person knows that Atanga is a criminal. He's supposed to be behind bars. He's a criminal, a political criminal, a war criminal, everything that you can talk about. So Atanga, his best survivor is remaining there. Because when he remains there, he has the protection of the criminal military, the criminal security agency. If he steps out of that place, the chances are that he'll be arrested. It's not just Taylor Onana telling the story. He will be arrested because I'm very sure, very, very highly sure, that Atanga is shortlisted for the ICC for his own actions that he has confessed to. This is the guy who confesses to pirating the Ministry of territorial administration website. He's a minister, he pirates the website for the criminal purpose of eliminating Cameroon. He has not apologized for that. The fact that it was pirated was not investigated. It is he himself who said it. That website was pirated. He never said who did it. He is the boss of that ministry. But other than that, Atanga faces the lot. If there are people are chasing Chiroma around the world, from Garwa to Jos, from Jos to Gambia, they are under the instructions and the directives of Atanga. Once you deprive the people of their own rights, political rights, not because they have done anything wrong, but for who they are, that's a war crime. That's a crime against humanity for which it should be prosecuted. One reason they are chasing Chiroma is that it's from the north. Because remember that document, How to Preserve Power by the Betis. What was the reason for denying Kamto? Simply because it's Bamileke. And they denying the political rights. And because of that denial, people have died. People have been killed. So it's a Tangaji an accomplice. A first accomplice is not the principal accuser. He's not the principal accused. He's the principal accomplice. So his days are numbered. He would be held accountable. The only thing that might save him is death. But if he volunteers to die, that will be good enough for his family. But if he lives on, he'll go back. Each time, probably not even to Nubia prison. He'll go back to The Hague and save a better jail term there. So Theiler Onana has put out that thing just to tell the world that, look, I was an insider. This is me. I was in the CPD and with this. I was even the mayor. But I also see what is going on. It's very wrong. It's telling the world. It's not telling the Cameroon authority. They will never arrest Atanga. No policeman, no journal will arrest Atanga. But it's telling the world at large that this is a criminal that should not be let loose to live around the country. And so we can say thank you, Mr. Theiler Onana. The case of the death of Anisette Ekane has become an international issue. It has become something that the world is watching, and the spotlight is on Atanga and many others in the party. But he's the first, he's the captain, he's the first in command. And so, thank you for pointing that out. Many other similar voices are out. We can only hope that the international community, those agencies that can enforce law, are listening to you, they are listening to us. A country like Cameroon has human beings like anyone else. The human rights that are enjoyed in Britain, in France, around the world, should be the same human rights enjoyed in Cameroon. And if there's anybody who flatters those human rights, who thinks that thing exists, who thinks that he or she is above the law, well, that's only a very short time. You cannot be above the law. Sooner or later, he's going to be brought to book. Thank you, Theiler Onana. Over to you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. It's so amazing having you analyze all of these reports emanating from the home front and from neighboring French Cameroons. It's on this point that we'll let you go because we know that we'll definitely see you on Saturday. Thank you so much, Barrister.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and coming up right after the break, we'll go straight to Africa's host historic G20 as it puts Global South priorities first, the first ever group of G20 summit to be held on the African soil. The first ever Group of 20 summit to be held on African soil concluded on Sunday, marking a turning point for the leaders committed to elevating the concerns of the world's poorest and most climate vulnerable nations. South Africa, hosting the landmark gathering, steered negotiation towards a consensus declaration endorsed by both advanced economies and leading emerging markets. The documents reflect a realignment amongst G20 members to address structural inequalities that have long disadvantaged developing countries. Central to the agreement is a pledge to intensify global focus on the disproportionate impacts of climate change on poorer nations. From extreme weather shocks to loss of livelihood, leaders acknowledge the widening financing gap that hampers climate adaptation efforts and called for more accessible, predictable funding. The summit also spotlighted the escalating debts burdens faced by low-income countries, many of which are grappling with rising interest rates and restrictive lending terms. The final declaration commits G20 members to support reforms aimed at easing debt distress, improving access to concessional finance, and overhauling lending frameworks seen as unfairly tilted against poorer borrowers. In addition, developing nations secured recognition of their urgent need for assistance in transitioning to green energy resources. Leaders agree that global climate goals cannot be met without enabling poorer countries to adopt clean technologies, expand renewable power, and phase out reliance on fossil fuels. For South Africa, the successful negotiation reinforced its positioning as a bridge between the global north and south. For the continent as a whole, the summit marked a symbolic and substantive step forward, amplifying Africa's voice in global economic governance. And so we hope to see more coming in from the G20 summit. But when we come back, we head into the globe where Putin, unmoved as Trump envoy, leaves without any form of breakthrough. Russian President Vladimir Putin appears in no rush to strike a deal over the war in Ukraine, according to assessment following a 5-hour meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump's convoy and son-in-law. Despite the lengthy discussion, the talks yielded little, publicly reinforcing the perception that Putin is content to be courted rather than coerced. The meeting underscores how Putin relishes the optics of being approached by Washington, an image that bolsters his narrative of Russia as a power to whom others must appeal. Putin launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine with the expectation of a rapid, decisive victory that would reassert Russia's military dominance in Europe, particularly after the chaotic US withdrawal from Afghanistan. Instead, his campaign became a brutal war of attrition. For a time, Russian forces appeared at risk of strategic defeat as US and NATO military assistance empowered Ukraine to achieve battlefield gains deemed improbable only a year earlier. The return of Donald Trump to the White House, however, has altered the strategic climate. His administration's sympathetic posture towards Russia and eagerness to pursue a peace deal, regardless of the concessions required, has offered Putin renewed leverage. The shift has raised doubt about long-term Western support for Ukraine and strengthened the Kremlin's belief that time favors Moscow. Putin faces no electoral pressure at home, having consolidated power to an extent that renders political competition largely symbolic. Analysts note that the only natural limit to this role is his lifespan, a reality that shapes his long-term approach to the conflict and his apparent willingness to wait out the West. Right, that's it for tonight on Undaunted. Bring it to the news untold stories. But before we go, let's take a look at the stories that made it to the headlines. Tonight, we told you that Bamenda Colonial DO has been accused of arbitrary school closure and, of course, is sparking debate. Also tonight, Colonial cancels 1.2 billion francs CFA budget ambition. It seems to be another empty promise. Tonight, we told you that French Cameroon military talks patrol streets of Ambazonia in armored vehicle, while kidnapping in Menchum has increased as divisional delegates of arts and culture abducted by men dressed in French Cameroon military fatigue. Also tonight, we told you that the outrage over Akane's death, Léon Theiler Onana demands resignation of French Cameroon's minister Atanga Nji. While on the African scene, we told you that Africa holds historic G20 summit, puts developing nations' priorities at center stage, while on the global scene, we told you that Putin is unmoved as Trump envoys marathon meeting produces no breakthrough. That's it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news untold stories. On behalf of Barrister Mbeseha and a team of technicians behind tonight's production, is good night and God bless you.